and welcome to Lard TV, where today I'm joined by Mark Backhouse, who readers of Wargame Soldiers and Strategy magazine will instantly recognise as one of their regular columnists. But more excitingly, Mark has been developing a new set of rules for Reiswitz Press called Strength and Honour, which is looking at warfare between the time of the Marian reforms right the way through to 200 AD. So Mark, welcome to Lard TV, and thank you for bringing along a fabulous looking table. I think this really does show the attraction of the small scale that you've decided to go with, and we'll talk about figure scales as we go through it. But tell me initially, why the time period of that Marian reform through to 200 AD? What's the appeal there?
Well, I suppose the appeal of this then is this is the time of the professional Roman legions. This is a time of huge battles, exciting characters that many of you will have heard of: Marius and Sulla, Caesar and Pompey, Vercingetorix, Spartacus, Mark Antony, Boudicca, Trajan and Septimus Severus.
I'm Spartacus. Oh no, that's a different film, right? But yeah, absolutely. And who couldn't want to be some of that? I mean, they are the big names. That's the first 15 of ancient warfare, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Really, if you're on that team sheet, you know you've achieved something. Well, the aim of Strength and Honour is to play big battles, and we really are talking about really big battles here, aren't we? At as close to a 1-to-1 scale as possible, with figures. Well, I mean, I think you can play it in 28mm if you've got a football pitch that you wanted to put things on. Sure. But realistically, you've chosen to go in 2mm, 2mm, 3mm, 6mm, 10mm. Great options. But it is actually playable in any of these scales. But the battles we're talking about could be between 10,000 and maybe 100,000 warriors. So we're packing a lot on a 6x4 table with the game that we're going to be running through over the next series of videos.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Richard. So not everyone's got the time or the storage space indeed to play these huge dream sort of battles inside 28mm. Okay, so what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be focusing on playing these much smaller scales to dramatic conclusions in a period of time maybe lasting for an hour and a half to 2.5 hours per game. So very manageable inside a standard club game. Yeah. Okay. And you could certainly play it inside 28mm, but probably by the time you'd unpack the figures, you'd have to put them back away again. So the attraction of this really is we can set up a game in 10-15 minutes, we can play it in 2 hours maybe, and we can have it all done by the end of the evening and play out those massive battles from history like Watling Street, Carrhae or Fastness.
Okay, excellent, sounds good. And as we've said, it looks good as well. So, tell me about it. The units in the game, what are they representing? Well, we've got some on the table in front of us here. What would one of these units be representing?
So, one of these units here represents a big group of men. I suppose in later terms, something like a brigade in size, about 4,000 to 5,000 men. So our standard building block unit for our Roman forces is going to be based around the legion. Okay. Now, the advantage of this then is it gives us a really good bird's eye image of the battlefield as a commander, a bit like that scene inside Spartacus where you can see the Roman legions coming towards you up the hillside. And typically a force would consist of between 8 to 10 units per side. You could go a bit smaller than that, up to something between, I suppose, 4 and about 14 units. Each individual base is a unit. There's no individual casualty removal at all, which means the focus is very much on your commander's priorities as a general would have inside a battle, rather than a centurion in charge of a century or a legate lower down the command structure.
Okay, right, great. Well, one of the reasons I'm really excited about Strength and Honour is that I love the tactical detail that we get in Infamy, but there are also times when I want to command whole armies. You know, it's very difficult not to read Caesar's Gallic Wars and think, hey, I wouldn't mind putting myself in his shoes. And the thing that you've got here is that you've got a game system. You mentioned 8 to 10 units is fairly typical, but you can take that, 4 units to 14 units per side. And really you can cover that well with your existing collections of other figures, or if you're looking for a brand new period, if you've never gamed big battle games before, this is a great place to start because your outlay is relatively limited in terms of cost, And in terms of size, I mean, storage is a big advantage with the size of game we're talking about here, isn't it?
Absolutely. So with that sort of size of scale here, what we're looking at here is we're looking at the big formations rather than individual units. We're looking at each individual block on a legion here is meant to be a cohort of soldiers, so in theory about 480 men strong there. So this is ideal inside 2mm, where you can fit them all in one base, but of course you could use your existing 15, 10 or 6mm figures there, and I'm sure many of you will want to use those before you dive straight on into maybe smaller scales and experiment with those. We're also going to be providing free print-off armies as well to get you going with the rules when you do pre-orders, so hopefully that'll be an incentive to get in your orders nice and early. We're also going to show you where we can buy 2mm figures from, and there's a number of manufacturers who are starting now to make units specifically for this game system as well. So while hopefully breaking new ground with what we're doing here with our units, we're hoping that it should be fairly accessible for many of you to be able to purchase those straight off the shelf. But alternatively, we're going to show you how to make some of these units here as well, very, very cheaply, without a great deal of skill needed, and make them look absolutely spectacular. So we're hoping you're going to join us for that.
Now, I know that Strength and Honour uses a grid system, so no measures are needed, no tape measures needed. You'll only need a handful of dice and a set of setback and disaster cards to play. No game tokens even. I think there's only one token.
Just one token, yeah.
So that's saved you a few quid already. So if you're looking at small scale figures, a force can be put together the same price really as a small force in 28mm for something like Dux Britanniarum, which is great.
Yeah, and really one of the real advantages of it is that you can really easily store the scenery. So for example, a wood in 28mm might maybe consist of a huge box of big trees there, which you have to individually take out, and we can get a huge great big wood here with maybe 100 trees inside it that can be stored, and then we can have things being stored on top of it as well, because it's just not so precious and so delicate despite its small size.
Okay, great. Well, I mean, here's one I prepared earlier. Here's a shot of a 28mm building that I've got for infamy, and we put that next to your Roman city, and you can see that whilst both are beautiful, there's a big storage advantage in the one that you've got. But yeah, you're right. This is a practical, portable game. You can have whole woods and forests that look exactly like woods and forests, and they're easy to store. The advantage of this is we can actually get a much more accurate ratio of figures to real warriors, and a much closer approximation to the ground scale the smaller we go. So the figures might be small, but what you get is an epic battle scene, as you say, mentioning Spartacus in that film, where you see the Romans advancing across the plains and towards the hills, and that's something that visually you get the effect of here.
Yeah, I mean, the rules really emphasise the chaos and confusion of battle, the challenges of moving huge numbers of troops rather than just small cohorts or centuries of Romans, for example, the swinging fortunes of the battle, and the different tactical and fighting styles of Rome and her many different enemies during this period here. The rules will be supported by a wide range of historical scenarios. I think we've got 10 or 11 so far planned for the book, but we're still adding a few more in there. And I'm sure we'll be able to see some more of my work and scenarios inside magazines like WSS magazine. So you'll know I'll keep producing scenarios and material to support these rules. With a huge wealth of written sources from this period, it would almost be impossible to run out of scenarios, historical scenarios to fight, I think.
No, absolutely, I quite agree. I mean, it's one of the things I find just utilising the classical texts as a point of reference is that it's voluminous, it's almost endless, isn't it? I mean, there's a huge wealth of enemies for the Romans or their allies to fight against. The hordes of expert-like horsemen employed by the Numidian regulars, and a very different response to the tightly packed ranks of ferocious Swabian tribesmen from across the Rhine looking to destroy Varus's legions, the heavily armoured cataphracts of the Parthians or the Armenians. And they're all going to fight in their own distinct styles, aren't they? That's really part of, and having been involved fairly heavily in the playtesting, that's one of the joys of it, that is that when you're fighting the different armies, you really get a feel for their different styles of fighting. Of course, this is also the period of the Great Civil War, so you could well have Romans fighting Romans, couldn't you? Yeah, so you've also got stuff like Philippi and Thapsus and Munda.
Yeah, these are really, really big battles. So what we're going to be doing then is over a series of short programs,
Yeah.
we're going to be showing you how the rules work for these big battles and how quick and easy they are to pick up, so that while they might start quite easy and you'll be able to pick them up and play them almost straight away, they're going to take quite a challenge then to master them, allowing for endless types of challenges and great replayability. And indeed, we've replayed many of the scenarios through 4 or 5 times, and each time we've had different outcomes and learned new lessons from them, haven't we?
Very much so.
So some parts will feel very familiar to you inside the rules, whereas other parts will hopefully feel very, very new and very innovative as well.
So there we have it, big epic battles that can be fought in relatively small areas to a conclusion in a normal club evening without huge financial outlay. I was thinking, as we've been talking, it's the type of game that I could take on holiday, which I'm sure would please my wife no end. But there we go. In the next video, we're going to be looking at army compositions, how to build your forces and get ready for getting out there and campaigning. So why don't you come and join us then, and we'll look forward to seeing you then. Thanks very much.